customers, and then you become less competitive and lose market. So it depends on what strategy you follow. But the financial uncertainty is there. Reduce profit margins. So some business may absorb part or increased costs. Market diversification. So that could be a benefit, right? Or an opportunity, not a benefit, but an opportunity. But yes, until you get to that point, on the short term, it could create challenges and be cost and time consuming for the business, right? So you need to spend that money in looking for different alternatives of markets and try to dissolve that inventory or create more stability to your product. So I asked the question. So after we reviewed some of the concepts, so is a tariff a weakness or a risk, a threat? So what is a tariff? What is a tariff? A risk or a weakness of the business?
I think it is a risk because it's not something that you can control.
Okay, exactly. Does everybody agree? You can post in the chat. Okay.
We have it depends.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay, so let's see. So, well, the question that I ask is, so is risk? Can you solve the threat? Just like Ignacio said, can you solve the threat? Like, can you solve a tariff, for example? You can't, right? So that's an external situation outside of your control, right? And you can't control it, right? So that can come up from any, from any front of business, or of economical or political policy, right? So in that case, is there one specific solution to it? Normally not, because that's a threat, right? So what can we do, right? So what's the point of all this? So what can we do? So ideally, so it is to build, so ideally what we can do is to build a plan to be better prepared for events, out of the business control. So so if you're not prepared, the impact will be much greater, but there are still time to adapt and be better prepared for what is coming. So there's still time to implement some of the tools and concepts that we're going to discuss here. So so what I'm going to disclose is specific tools that will assist you with the preparation. Okay. So what's the supply chain secret weapon? Okay, so let's start with the general plan and objective, supply chain resilience. So I'm very honored to say that I created this, this map to assist businesses to build more resilience in their supply chain and be better prepared for unforeseen events. So we would start with map the risks, right, and your supply chain, diversify your vendor list, foster strong vendor relationship, build resilient inventory management, strengthen logistics, and implement advanced technology. But how do we do that? Let's go through each one of these points here, these 6 steps. So the first of all, there's 2 different ways of mapping, so this one here specifically I would like to share. It's a risk management framework cycle that I've got from the Fit Skills Feasibility of International Trade course provided by FITT on their program. So kudos to them. So is the which encompass of 9 different steps in identifying and mitigating risks, right? So going through all the 9 steps, so we have identify issues, set context. You identify the key risks. You measure the probability of impact. So this is one of the key ones. They have a specific way to to measure that impact on your business. Rank potential risks. So then after you've measured and give it a score to that risk, then you're going to rank that risk and understand which would be the highest impact. Specify desired outcomes, and then you develop the options, the alternatives to solutions. You select one of those, and you implement it. So that'll be the project you'll be implementing to either mitigate, reduce, or avoid that risk. And then you monitor, evaluate, and control, and that's a cyclical process. They're a very good and comprehensive tool that could and they teach that tool throughout basically an entire module on the feasibility of international trade, which is provided by the World Trade Center. And I think they have a course coming up soon in September. Okay, so just reach out to them if you're interested in learning more on how to implement this tool. All right. Another one that's quite interesting is supply chain mapping. Okay, and this helps identify bottlenecks and supply chain disruptions. So it could be either weaknesses on your supply chain or potential risks down the chain with your suppliers that will be outside of your control, right? So and then you can see here. So just coming up, out of one specific point here, let's say BP, that will be your organization, and then you start looking at suppliers down the flow, like down the demand flow, and all the way, as far as you can get in terms of information from your suppliers. It could be suppliers of your suppliers or suppliers of your suppliers of your suppliers. So the more specific you get, so the more you understand where that material is coming from, where is it producing. So you can get all the way down to the raw material when it's extracted, to be produced on that, like down the chain. So if you have control of that, so that's more transparency, and see if there's any potential risks or disruptions that would affect your business down the pipeline. The same way it happens on the customer flow, right? So when you produce your products and moving down the flow, see where are the potential bottlenecks or opportunities, and where you can make the process a little bit more sophisticated and implement some some opportunities. So these tools help you identify potential threats or risks to your operations, which would include the tariffs as well. Moving on, so we have diversifying the vendor list, which the more diversified the vendor list is, the more resilient your supply chain would be. You will be able to quickly change to alternative approved suppliers or as risks emerge from other regions, right? So one of the things that are key, to resilient businesses is having a preferred supplier list, right? So that would make you understand to go after alternatives once you have certain disruptions on your supply chain, right? The supply chain map will help you build that preferred supplier list as well, and identify potential bottlenecks. If maybe your suppliers are all coming from one specific area or one specific country that has a higher risk of being tariff or political issues that might be coming up. So you can start looking at diversifying that further on, right? So develop backups, for suppliers. So working as a purchasing manager, I've always had like at least so 3 alternative suppliers for each different product, in which would give me more resiliency in case I need to, in case my main provider couldn't supply at that point, and then I could quickly switch to another one and not have any disruptions. So diversify, the source from different regions in case there's a political uncertainty or application of tariffs, or our government start having complications with that country, for example, right? So that's good. So if you have alternatives from other areas, from other regions, it will give you more leverage as well.
Just to put some things into perspective as well, Victor, just to chime in here, if we want to relate this towards Canadian imports, say with China, Canada puts 100% surtax or a tariff on EVs, 25% surtax on steel and aluminum products from China as well. So, I mean, those measures were taken in response to what Canada perceives to be unfair trade practices. So specifically, China's government, they subside subsidies that artificially lower production cost on these goods. So China retaliated as well with its own tariffs, which were huge for Canada, especially on Canada ag, so agricultural and food products, including 100% tariff on canola oil, oil cakes and pea imports, and 25% duty on Canadian aquatic products and pork. So that took effect, I believe, March 2025. So I just wanted to chime in there and put some put some more insight on that.
Thank you for that. So, and then, and then for strong vendor and customer relationships, right? So, so the stronger the supplier, or the connection with the customer is, the more you can develop negotiation strategies and develop cooperation during that, during unforeseen situations, right? So you can create open communication, share information and data more openly, and then integrate system as allowed, right? So the more you develop that, the framework, the better, right? So, and I had examples like throughout my career as well, in which I developed those relationships, and once we had certain shortages or impacts on the for example on an unforeseen strike at the Port of Vancouver, right? So my suppliers, they were ready to send another load to an alternative port, or alternative route, right? So that it would already seeing that impact and delay, so we wouldn't be out of the of the materials that were needed during the process, right? So having that relationship is key for resilience. And then moving on, another one would be build resilient inventory management. So and that comes alongside with the supplier and customer relationship as well. So by building resilient inventory management, you develop safety stock fluctuation. That could be, again, on the supplier side or on the customer side, right? So you can negotiate a little bit better by having that. So as you develop that, the partnership, that safety stock can be better managed or fluctuate as needed based on on those threats that might be coming up from government policies or conflicts. Then develop transparency with suppliers, right? So and again, the more information they have, or the more you share with them, the more keen and liable they become, right? So and they're more interested in developing that that growth with you, right? So another point is integrate systems and technology platforms. That's so again, with inventory management, and as you integrate that information system and share the information with suppliers, let's see the forecast, an extended forecast of what you need, that helps suppliers be better prepared for what you're seeing and even unforeseen in the future, right? So it helps them be better prepared for your needs. And manage pipeline supplier inventory. So that's another key one. So I've seen numerous times where businesses they use inventory as a scapegoat, or just if you're having an issue, just increase inventory so you don't stop production or don't stop supplying customers. But so it's pretty rare to see businesses managing that pipeline inventory or in transit inventory, right? So the inventory that keeps on the move, right? I've done that where I staggered, deliveries, between a supplier and our warehouse location, and then we would manage that delivery from we'll keep some inventory in transit while we were still using what we were in stock, and then in a good timely manner that would arrive as that inventory is depleted, right? Of course, the safety stock is there just to help out in case something happens down the way, because there's always something that might happen. But managing that, in transit inventory is key as well for building that resiliency. All right.
Another piece as well, Victor, just chiming in. We other strategies that we've seen some clients and whatnot do is domestic sourcing or onshoring, where they're looking inside of our own walls or inside of our own borders.
Good, thank you. And then so strengthen logistics. So several business insource operations insource their operations that can be better done by outsourcing to specialized businesses, right? So, and that goes back to to partnerships with vendors, that which applies to services, to service providers as well, including carriers, warehousing, and third-party logistics providers, right? So by doing that, you have a variable cost management, as you fluctuate on your operations, it could more easily adapt to to market shifts. So having the right partner is critical, as we discussed before, right? So I have a specific data here on logistics functions outsourced. So domestic, so we have domestic transportation. So most of that is outsourced to or the carriers and warehousing, international transportation, brokerage, and then as you go down, some of the ones that are the least outsourced is like so 3PL provides supply chain consulting services, service parts, logistics, customer service, and fleet management. We could also be managed by specialized companies that would provide more insights on that front, right? So you could focus on your business rather than on the operations itself, right? And by having that outsource, like you would have like as I said before, more of a variable cost rather than like a fixed cost, right? So I've done that before as well, like which was very successful in a project. The organization, they had like this huge 120,000 square feet of a warehouse for low moving inventory and high operating costs. So on the project, I brought the the idea of outsourcing all that operations to become more of a variable cost because of the volume they had, and reduce the inventory levels. So and I calculated the savings they would have throughout the years. So it justified the operations to be moved from an in-sourced operations to an outsourced operations, which was implemented very successfully down the road, right? And working with carriers, warehousing operators, and outsourcing services like 3PL providers or 4PL providers is key to your outsourcing operations and logistics. All right, so implement this technology, and that comes with the technology as well. So using all these concepts demand a lot of data and management processes, right? Especially manual inputs. And that is where the technology could assist in automating and and enhance mapping strategies, automate that exchange and improve that analytics, right? So we have, tools like a TMS, transportation management system, a warehouse management system, and automated demand forecasting tools. And also all that could be integrated through API integration with vendors and customers as well. So like that, which would reduce the amount of data that you share manually with providers, reduce the the possibility of errors as well, and enhance the the cooperation down the supply chain as well, right? So the more tech, especially with all the advanced technology we're having nowadays, it's extremely important for you to have that to better connect with your providers down the chain and share information, be better prepared in the short term. Okay. Moving on, so we have so that's a cyclical process, as we discussed before, monitor and control. So this is a continuous process, which the market is, right? So market is it fluctuates, right? So continuously monitoring any shifts in the market, including potential political policies or economical challenges and so on, would be key to bring resilience. A good way to do that is especially on the tariff side. On the tariff side is using the tariff finder provided by BDC, right? So it has some limited capabilities, but because mostly focus on countries where Canada has an FTA or free trade agreement with, but it does give you an overview, like for example, the tariff code, right? So the harmonized tariff code. So we'll give you an idea. So if you just provide the description, if you're exporting or importing, we'll suggest a specific harmonized HST, and we'll also give you the information if a tariff is has zero duties or not, right? Because even though like they might have like a free trade agreement signed, there are specific areas or specific industries that might be protected under that agreement. A tariff would be applied, right? So it's always good to check on that. So, like for example, we have here, the tariff on we share aluminum, going into exporting to the U.S. and then the cans, the aluminum cans for beverages, coming back into Canada, right? So you can see, the tariffs are being applied on our Canadian aluminum, but not on the aluminum cans coming back to Canada. All right, and then okay, so I'm just moving back to this, as you can see here. So we went through all the all the 6 steps of supply chain resilience, and as these are applied on the organization, the more so you have those points applied, the more resilient you are, and the better prepare as well for any eventualities that might happen. I have a few examples of organizations that I've seen that on both ends that didn't have that much of resilience, and those that had that resiliency compared to the American on the American market, an organization that they foreseen that the Made America policy as a potential threat for their business. So what they did back in 2019 and 2018, they implemented their own production plant or assembly plant in Minnesota, and it's a Manitoba-based company, and I just recently talked to them as a customer, and they say and they were minimum affected by the tariffs because they were already producing American-made products, and that wouldn't affect them at all, and that opened the doors for other potential opportunities in terms of supplier base and so on, right? But I've also seen other organizations that it didn't have that. It was they had most of their market in the U.S., but producing down here in Canada and buying goods more than 50% from the U.S. and so they were basically double tariffed, once these policies came on board, right? So there was a huge stress going through their process because they were not prepared yet, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not prepared, if you don't apply this, you better understand how your process works, how your market works, for your suppliers and customers, where your supplier and customers are, by mapping it all and understand where the opportunities are for reducing, mitigating, or even avoiding that potential risk. All right. And that's all I have. So I'll open the the floor for questions, and thank you all for watching this presentation. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Victor. Please write your questions in the chat. I do have a questions I would like to ask you guys. If you have heard this new concept that is on fashion right now about tariff engineering, it's a concept of modifying your products or your raw materials or your procedures. Have you heard of it? Why do you think it is important, and how it can help companies from Canada and from Manitoba?
Yeah, I can answer to that because I've seen and I've done that myself before. So and that's a great question. So that's another alternative. It can be identified through the process mapping, right? So or through the mapping process is so if you have identified because what defines a tariff is the HST code, right? What the Harmonized System Tariff Code, right? So if you have identified that a specific code has a tariff in it, or an anti-dumping tariff that your local government or state implements, right? So what I've seen is you work with your supplier to either assemble that at the country of origin. So you change that the tariff code to a tariff that doesn't have that anti-dumping duty, right? Or a tariff that it doesn't apply on that duty as well. Or it could be on the other end, if you buy like a more of a semi-finished good, right? And that semi-finished good is being tariffed now because of other Trump policies. You can work with your supplier to break it down more, right? And then bring it over to the country and assemble here, right? So, but of course, you need to calculate what the implications are, what the costs of that operations, and if you have capacity in assembling that good here just to avoid the tariff. So you need to see what the cost benefit is before you tariff engineer that that specific part, for example, right?
Just to quickly add on to that as well. Yeah, just it isn't a magic bullet. Like you still, like Victor said, you still need to be very compliant and careful and make sure you're very well documented. But it is legitimate. It's a legitimate lever to use, and especially like in Manitoba, where distance and borders are always in play. Smart tariff engineering can definitely be the difference between staying competitive and pricing yourself out of the market. We have a couple other questions here. Does the recent tariff, we got lots of questions here. Does the recent tariff apply to goods only? Most services that require individuals' expertise for a specialized job in Canada, would the tariff apply? Would you like to fill that, Victor, or would you like me to fill that?
Yeah. I can start answering that question, and then you can chime in if you want. Like, yes, it'll depend on services. As far as I know, like services was not part of the tariff situation that's happening right now. It's mostly goods. Right, so I've seen that, but I don't. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but so far as I know, because we had a potential customer down in the States as a service provider, as a consultant, and then we consult with. We try to identify if there was potential tariffs or duties, for providing services, overseas into the U.S., and that was not addressed at this point, right? So that wouldn't be tariffed, but that could change, right? So it's always good to be prepared and identify and stay up to date with what the changes if that happens in the future. You want to say something or?
No, you pretty much nailed it there. I mean, right now, like you said, it's not whether it's consulting or engineers or software development. From what we can see, they're not taxed at the border or tariffed. So lots of questions flying in. So this one is, as an American trying to better understand how tariffs affect one of our closest trading partners, could you share what specific challenges Canadian businesses are facing that might not be obvious from the U.S. side of the border?
You want to chime in?
Sure. I mean, we also look at things like the exchange rate as well, right? I mean, there's obviously other challenges that we face. I mean, with the exchange rate, I mean, right now the dollar has been doing drastically better than it has been in the past few months. But I mean, tariffs, especially American tariffs, are charged in USD. So I mean, with the dollar improving, it's not necessarily an issue, but it's still a squeeze on us, and it can be very brutal, right? So just napkin math, like a 25% tariff feels like a bump through the U.S. But it can actually become 30 to 35% tariffs when you add inflation, when you add exchange, and whatnot as well. So I mean, and then if you look at logistics wise as well with our geography, that also adds to the pressure as well. So I mean, with the same scale of distribution or infrastructure compared to the U.S., so every dollar added, like tariffs, fuel, or admin charges, as it's shipped across Canada. With very limited routes, freight costs. I mean, right now, I mean, especially in the LTL world, are very sky high. So, and then, I mean, for SMEs, you're looking at margin comparisons as well, right? So, I mean, maybe they can't absorb that tariff related cost increase, right? So what I mean by that is they're not necessarily hedging their currencies. They don't have warehouses, full of alternate stock, and they just can't retool. Like, especially in manufacturing, they can't just retool a line on a whim, right? So, I mean, tariffs, they squeeze your margins very, very quickly, as we've seen in the last few months. So, I mean, and it often, for a lot of small manufacturers, it really forces tough calls, whether or not you're raising prices or you're absorbing those costs, or you're doing things like shrinking your workforce, or you're looking at walking away from the U.S. markets entirely. So yes, it's definitely putting a squeeze on, especially smaller Canadian, not just all businesses in general, but especially when you're talking with SMEs. Do you have anything to add, Victor?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. No, that's well done. Yeah, well, just one point here, so but the Canadian businesses always, have always seen the American market as as an extension of our own market, right? So as a low hanging fruit, right? So and that could be and that could be like a wake up call, right? So and a good opportunity to start looking for alternative markets, right? So and that's what we have been seeing now in for some businesses in trying to expand their their market to other territories or countries and try to build that resilience, right? So a good resource would be talking to our partners, the World Trade Center, to get some leverage and help help you guys out to find alternatives, and also and on the other side as well with suppliers and so on, so businesses like CentreCan, like ourselves, we could help you develop that resilience as well. Okay, thank you, Tim.
More questions rolling in. This is right in your wheelhouse, Victor. So hi, it says, hi, Victor and Tim. Thank you for the presentation. I know of some Manitoba exporters who are using bonded warehouses. We've heard this many times, to avoid tariffs and duties. So first, are they feasible for many exporters? And if so, are there any drawbacks?
What do you think? Well, I think they're feasible. I've seen so bonded warehouses, I think they're feasible, right? I can't remember if I've ever used that before here. Okay. But if there are any drawbacks, I don't know. I'll let you chime in, Tim.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you don't know, if some people on the chat don't know what a bonded warehouse is, it's like a secure facility. So it's authorized in conjunction with the CBSA, so you can get imported goods. They can be stored within those warehouses without paying the duties or taxes until they're re-exported or released into the Canadian market, so to speak. And then at that point, your duties are paid. So if a Manitoba company does import raw materials or components into the U.S., and you store them in a bonded warehouse and re-export them, you can kind of legally avoid paying tariffs. It's particularly useful for JIT exporters. Feasible, yes, it is definitely feasible. It's practical for everybody. Not exactly. It's not necessarily practical for everybody, especially if you're like a small volume exporter, or you sell most of your goods within Canada. It's kind of doesn't make any sense to use a bonded warehouse. Yeah. Or if your operation can't actually handle the tight customs compliance, right? So like CBSA audits they audit. I've worked in lots of situations where we've had bonded warehouses, and the CBSA audit those warehouses regularly. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Just to chime in. Yeah. So and the other thing is as well, what defines a tariff is the country of origin, right? So even if you're using a bonded warehouse to re-export that product and you're avoiding just let's say you're bringing a load of container into Winnipeg or into Canada, right? And half of that container will be redirected to the U.S. market, right? So it doesn't necessarily avoid any tariffs, right? Unless that country of origin doesn't have the tariffs applied to them, right? I think the U.S. just signed an agreement with the UK, if I'm not wrong, right? But not with Canada. So just because you're coming, yes, you're bringing products from the UK into Canada and ship from Canada into the US, it doesn't necessarily apply Canadian tariffs if because it's leaving from Canada. Not necessarily. Like what determines that tariff is the country of origin, right? So it might not be applicable apply to to the UK product if it's tariff free, right? So
great. Another, I think this is more of a comment. Steve Setka, it says, Victor and Tim, are you and your company licensed as Canadian brokers? I'll get to that. And then it's good to ensure people know the delineation between customs in each country requiring a different customs process for the importing country. Many people don't know that Canadian custom brokers accounts don't automatically qualify you as an importing business for the USA customs brokerage process. Ensure your customs broker is licensed for both Canada and the USA if you import to both countries. Customs brokers, and I agree, are extremely valuable right now. We are not licensed as Canadian customs brokers. We are interim 4PL managers and supply chain innovators. So you're right, Steve. Like my advice to everybody is look for a really reputable and qualified customs broker like a GHY or Kuehne+Nagel or Cole or even UPS, FedEx. They do customs brokerage as well. So there's many options out there to assist. So that's actually a really good point, Steve. So I thank you for that. Next question. Victor, if you need a drink of water, you can have one. You present excellently on how your supply chain gets affected and ways to mitigate. How about elaborating on when you are exporting to foreign markets that increase tariffs to shut you out, i.e. the world involve finding other, this would involve finding other markets and or having government advocate and help out and help finding markets. That makes sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. Yes. How about elaborating when you were sorry? Yeah. So and again, so how do you presently avoid that? Yeah. So just with my so example I mentioned that before, right? By applying that resilience, like supply chain mapping or or the risk management framework, right? So you are continuously identifying that that potential threat, or if there's a threat or like a coming up tariff that might be happening, right? So and that's what I've been saying, the tariffs that the US are applying now is not something new, right? So the US, even like the previous administrations, they've been indicating the made in America policy, right? So they've been pushing for industries to to apply that, and for companies to buy more locally rather than buying from other countries, and that includes Canada and Mexico, right? Trump just what he did was just more of an aggressive policy, right? That of course it caught people offhanded because they might not expect that, but it was and with the example that that I said, if companies they were doing that risk mitigation before and mapping the systems out, they would be better prepared for a situation like this, right? So just I said, this local company that they opened a plant because a big portion of their business it was in the US, right? So they saw that huge risk coming up. So okay, so if something happens in the US and they don't buy more Canadian products, we're going to lose half of our market and then we'll bankrupt, right? So they open a plant in the US and make made American products. So I'm not saying every company has to do that. You need to analyze if that's a feasible solution, but that worked very well for that business, right? It could be re-engineering, just like what Ignacio introduced there, right? So and I've done that myself before, where I was buying that was so not on the exporting side, it was on the importing side. I was buying from China, and then the government implemented an anti-dumping rule that it would increase the cost of the product by 30%, right? What I did, we re-engineered that, so we broke it down, right, in two different parts, right? That would change the HSD, the tariff code, and then on that specific, on the other tariff codes, we were not tariffed, 30%. right? So then we started like importing those goods separately and then assembling. And we saw like we did a feasibility analysis if yes, how much time or how much like workforce, labor we would need to assemble those parts. So it's very minimum. So we started doing that internally, and then we avoid the tariff, the 30% tariff hit, right? So there are ways, in doing that, but you need to identify them before they happen, right? So right, and be better prepared, right? So that's key to any to any specific risks your organization might have.
And it's just not, the U.S. to Canada or China to Canada. We do that with interprovincial trade barriers as well. Canada does that as well for protectionism, right? Especially with our dairy products. I believe it's between 200 and 300% that we tariff U.S. dairy products coming into the country, and that's to protect our market as well, right? So there's other pieces to that as well, right? So I mean, hopefully, with stuff working out, especially in Canada with the interprovincial trade barriers, we hope that that also helps to add to our GDP growth as well. So, Steve, potentially unpopular opinion. If you have to eat the entire hit of the tariffs on your margins just to stay competitive, your business simply isn't that good. If you're not able to pass along some of the costs, work needs to be done in the relationship, your service levels, and the quality of the product services that you provide. So just kind of a spicy take on some of that stuff. So another question, Victor, as a business owner, what are some of the ways that your banking partners could minimize the impact of negative effects on tariffs?
I've
seen.
Good
question.
That's a very good question. I've seen like a natural, one of the easier, well, not easier, but good ways a company was doing that is by natural hedging of especially when you buy or sell products in the USD, and you keep that the currency in USD, like in a local bank, like say like an American bank, for example, and then you pay that USD. But that's mostly like to avoid exchange rates, right? You could use some of the like forward what's it called, like forward hedging. There's some hedging policies. You can talk to your banker, to your bank, to see what opportunities exist out there. But that could help you be better prepared for that impact, right? So I think this with natural hedging, as you especially when you deal on the import and export side of things, I've seen a lot of companies using natural hedging to to pay their customers in the U.S. or their suppliers in the U.S. So they keep that money in USD instead of converting right away to Canada into Canadian. So to leverage that and avoid the exchange fluctuation. If that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think it also helps with the relationship you have with your bank as well, right? Because I mean, they'll advocate for you as well. So I mean, and that's something like Victor said. Like I would suggest sitting down with your bank, especially if you've got that long-term relationship with them, and see what they can do for you, right? Because they'll usually advocate or help you design like a finance package to help you through that. Yep. Let's see. Can you recommend a reliable logistics service provider for Canada, USA shipments? There's so many.
Just send us an email. We can talk on the sidelines, I guess, right, Tim? Or
absolutely. Yeah, just contact us, and we can definitely assist you with finding a good LSP. I believe that is. Oh,
yes.
Steve says right here.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe that's it. And look at that. We're like right at time. Great job.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, great.
If anybody has any other questions for us, by the way, but feel free to scan the QR code or send us an email as well. That contact, that QR code leads to a form, and you can definitely ask us questions. We'll be sure to reach out and contact you guys.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Victor and team, for your insightful presentation. It was very, very good. I have shared the upcoming webinars and events. If you need further information, you can also send me an email. We're here to help. Thank you very much, guys, and I wish you a great day for everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you.